Yo, what is up, YouTube? Welcome to the second part of this video. As you can tell, I have a little bit better mic now, so hopefully the audio quality is better. But I want to pick up exactly where I left off, which was my story and the moment that my life changed forever. Now, this is a little bit of a tough story, obviously, to be able to convey. I'm going to try and convey it in the best way possible for you guys and just let you in on a little insight about who I am, what I went through. That way you know all the things I accomplished weren't some luck-based thing. It was through hard work and dedication. So, with that being said, in the last video, we specifically talked about the one moment that was changing my life forever. And I was at my mom's house getting ready for church, did my push-ups, did my sit-ups, all that good stuff. And then what happened directly after that was the number one thing that not only changed my life, but shaped me into who I am today. And it was a defining moment for the rest of my life and always will be. So without further ado, we can go ahead and jump into it. So basically, I was doing push-ups, I was doing sit-ups, read my Bible, got ready for church, right? In that moment, somebody had knocked at the door and I looked out the window, right? And I saw that it was two police officers. And obviously the first thing that went through my mind is, holy crap, what did I do? Am I in trouble, right? Basically, I opened the door and I said, how can I help you? And they were basically just looking at me and they were like, hey, is your mom here? We need to speak with her. And she was getting ready for church and I said, yeah, let me go get her. So I went to get her. And as soon as I did, obviously being curious and worrying if I did something, I was looking out of my bedroom window. And I remember her going out there. They talked to her for a moment. And then in a split second, I saw my mom collapse and start crying and everything you could imagine. And then in my head, I knew that something was very wrong, obviously. So what I did, the first thing I did was I picked up the phone and called my dad because I knew something was wrong, something had happened, and I didn't know what for sure it was. And he was not answering. Called him multiple times, and he always picked up the phone whenever I called him, right? So what I did was kind of picked myself up, pick up the courage to walk outside. I walked out there to my mom, and then I got the news that my dad was killed in a car accident from a drunk driver. And in that moment, I was 15 years old, and my life completely changed because I was the oldest child. I had two younger brothers, and it was just me, my mom, and my two little brothers. At that point, there was nothing else that was going to change in that moment. So that was a big defining moment for me because it set in very, very quickly that I was the leader, and I had to step up. And I had to do things that I've never done before. And I had shoes that were impossible to fill. And that was a very eye-opening experience. And it was also a detrimental experience, as you can imagine. Anybody that is going through this currently right now or has gone through this in the past understands what I am saying. And I am sorry for any of you that have experienced that because it is very difficult. Right, so went through that moment, and yeah, everything changed. I did not have a leader any longer. I didn't have anybody to look to. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have anybody teaching me the things of the world, especially as a man, and that completely changed my life. And then fast forward a little bit, after all that happened, obviously myself, for me, I was struggling quite a bit because my focus was completely lost. My grades started tanking. The only peace of mind that I had in that moment was competition in baseball, because that was something, like I said before in the previous video, that I had grew up on, something that my dad taught me over the years, and that was the only thing that I could find peace in when I was competing on the baseball field. And so I got lost in baseball and nothing else. My grades were bad, everything was rough, and then my mom actually ended up getting remarried about 9 months to a year later to a guy that lived in Hawaii. He was actually stationed in Hawaii, and we moved from Arkansas, where I had grew up my whole entire life, all the way to Hawaii, which is about 3,000 or 4,000 miles away. So I got picked up and left. And that was also very, very difficult. That transition was very hard for me because I had friends, I had family, I had support in Arkansas because that's where I was at that moment. And when that was all taken away, it was very hard. I was very alone in those moments because I really didn't have anybody to talk to. My mom was obviously consumed in a new marriage and all that good stuff, which, you know, at the time when I was younger, I blamed her, all that good stuff, but it was not her fault in terms of everything. Obviously, she was trying to find something that she could protect. She was holding all the things that we had just to make sure that something would work and we could be taken care of and all that good stuff. So yeah, we ended up moving to Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for the remaining of my high school and graduated there, played baseball there, all that good stuff, got a great experience over there after everything. But I think one of the defining moments and one thing I want to talk about here is finding yourself in those situations and finding out that no matter what you go through, you can always get up. And that's super important. In today's society, there is a large victimhood that is constantly played over and over again, and that is what stops people from being able to step up, being able to achieve success, being able to do the things that you are meant to do, and that victimhood crushes you, right? So if you're watching this video and you have gone through that or are currently going through that, don't play victim, right? It is hard. I know it's hard. Get up, get through it, because you can. Everybody can, right? Go to the gym, take care of your health, take care of the things that matter to you the most, and get up, right? If you get up, everything changes. So through that time, I got up, right? I focused on baseball very heavily because that was an out for me. And eventually, after I graduated high school, I got a chance to play college baseball in the state of Washington. And that was very interesting because that was a redemption moment for me. I had bad grades. I couldn't focus. I got into low trouble in terms of partying and alcohol and drugs and all that other stuff that was not the path that I was meant to go down. And I stopped. And as soon as I got to college, I realized that this was my redemption moment. I had a chance to change not only my life, but my family's life and make sure they were taken care of. And the biggest thing is I had a chance to become that leader that I was trying to be. And baseball gave me that hope. In college, I worked very, very, very hard. Harder than I've ever worked before. Even when I had all of my family members and we were all together, this was the hardest I've ever worked in my entire life, because I knew in this moment in college that if I did not work hard, nothing was going to come to pass. So when I was at Washington, I actually woke up every single morning, ran a mile, did push-ups, sit-ups, went to class. Right after class, I would go run bleachers and I would lift, and then I would get ready for practice. I would go to practice, I would lift with the team, then I would stay after and I would lift again. So I was lifting 3 times a day, and then I worked at Pizza Hut. So I was grinding the hardest I've ever grinded in my life. And the reason for that is because I knew that that was the last opportunity that I had. So I ended up actually getting looked at by a lot of different places, and eventually I did get a chance to step up. But another unforeseen roadblock hit me when I was playing baseball. I actually ended up injuring my shoulder throwing weighted balls, and I felt the injury as soon as it happened, continued to play through that, and then eventually I couldn't even pick up my arm. And so my shoulder was completely destroyed. I ended up going to the doctor afterward, and that was that. Baseball was over, right? So at that moment, I really didn't know what to do. And that brings me to after college. I had no plans. I didn't know what to do, and I was lost. And for a lot of you guys watching this, you probably are lost too. Right? There is a lot of moments in your life where you really don't know what to do. You feel like you're stuck. And this was one of those moments for me, right? And so in that moment, I ended up going with my friend back to Hawaii for about 6 months. And the only thing I could think about doing was just getting my mind off of everything. So I partied, right? Did everything that I possibly could to forget about the things that were there in front of my face that I was gonna have to face at some point. Right? So I ended up being a mall security guard in Hawaii, and that was a fun little adventure. I got paid $12.50, $13 an hour, I believe. Couldn't afford a house in those moments, so I actually stayed with my friend. And yeah, that was it, right? I stayed there for 6 months, and then I didn't know what to do. I was looking every avenue. I thought the only way for me to be successful and to achieve the things that I was trying to achieve and take care of my family was baseball. And so when I lost that, that was kind of it. So what I decided to do was my last ditch effort was go to the military, right? So I ended up flying back out to Arkansas because my mom was there again. They had moved back, all that good stuff. So I flew back out to Arkansas. And in this moment, the only chance that I had was, you know what, I'm going to go into the military. I like some of that stuff anyway. So I'm going to see what happens in that regard. And yeah, I went back. I went to take the ASVAB, went to MEPS actually in Memphis, Tennessee, and then I met everybody. And that was a super defining moment for me as well. Once I met everybody, I realized at MEPS that a lot of these people, yes, they were there on a last-ditch effort. Some of them were just in so much trouble that they had to go, but nobody cared about goals. Nobody cared about accomplishing, being great, anything like that. That's the only reason I was there, because I figured, you know what, I'm an athlete, I can be great at this. And nobody had that same look when I was there. That was just my experience. I'm sure there is a bunch of people in the military that try and be great, but for me, when I saw all the people at MEPS in Memphis, Tennessee, there was nobody there that was trying to be great. So that was a big red flag for me. And I ended up saying, I don't want to be around these people. This is not who I can surround myself with to get success. And I left. I left MEPS that night because it didn't make sense and it didn't feel right. And so I ended up leaving and went right back to the crappy jobs that I was trying to somehow find success in. So I would look at the top of everybody. When I got back, I actually got a job at Academy Sports and Outdoors because the number one thing that I hated to do was talk to people. So I ended up getting a Academy Sports and Outdoor job. And in that job, I worked at 3 o'clock in the morning every morning on purpose so I didn't have to speak to anybody. I just unloaded trucks, stocked the inventory in the store, and then my day was over. That was it. I was making $10.50 an hour, and I had no money. The only thing I could do was fill my truck up, and that was about it. So that was the only thing that I had going for me. And then eventually I looked up at the managers, and I recommend anybody that's in these situations do this, okay? I looked up at the managers, I looked up at the top in that store, in that position, and one of the biggest things I was looking at was, you know, how much money do they make? Are they happy? Do they have freedom? No, they didn't. Absolutely not, right? A lot of them were upset. They didn't make any money, and they had one vacation each year, and that was just not going to work for me. So I ended up quitting that job, and I worked construction because the top guy there was making multiple $1 million a year, obviously because he owned the company. I didn't put those pieces together at that time, but he was making millions of dollars. He was living the lifestyle that he wanted, had a beautiful house, all that good stuff. So I ended up going there, working construction for a little bit, still making $10 an hour. And one day, I was sweeping a new construction site, the parking lot. I was sweeping rocks out of the parking lot. So that way there was no debris in the parking lot whenever the building was finished. That was very annoying, to say the least. But in that moment, I realized that, you know, the reason that he's making millions of dollars is because he owns the business. And I'm never going to own this business unless I work here for 50 years and kiss ass all the way up to the top. And I'm just not going to do that, right? That's going to take too long. That's not the way to do it. So I started looking for job opportunities in that moment. I got on a bunch of different websites to look for job opportunities, look for applications, and I came across this one that said $99,000 plus a year. No degree needed, and it was sales. And it was a car dealership. Now, bear in mind, I had no idea what the stigma behind car salesmen were, anything like that. I just saw the money, and I was like, wow, that sounds good. So I applied for it and ended up getting the interview. Now, in that moment, everything in my life changed. And I will go into that the next. Now, it was a bigger change. It was a different change because I realized that freedom was attainable, that money, you could make it no matter what you had been through, no matter if you did not have a college degree, no matter what, right? So I will talk about that in the next video, and this is basically going to be my business journey of what I did in sales, how I accomplished success in sales, and then eventually how I transitioned to selling online, starting businesses online, and then eventually doing what we do today. So I will talk about that more. That is just the baseline of my story in terms of everything, how I got to where I was. Beginning of this was a little down and sad, but it is real, right? People go through this all the time. I know I am not the only one. I'm just willing to share it in this moment to help the people that are going through it currently right now or have been through it. I just want to look at you and tell you, you can get up, you can get through it. I did. I am not special by any means. I have no magical powers. I just got up and I worked super hard. And I'm about to tell you exactly how I did it in the next video, and hopefully you can do it too. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure and subscribe down below. Hit that like button for me because I'm really trying to grow this channel as fast as possible to get this story out and to hopefully help as many people as possible. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.